This is author-philosopher Ronald E. Springer of EthicsUnderground.com here to continue the reading of Moral Armor. Chapter 9, Part 7, Slavery. Please hit like and subscribe before we dive in. The irrationally dominant stream is the environment of our mortal enemies in Islamic Fundamentalist regimes who hold their countries hostage and use children as private whores in first battle waves. They murder, rape, beat, and rob as their normal daily flow of action, lifting a finger only to pick amongst the values around them, leaving horrific emotional scars on their victims, never to heal. He desires all the same actions, but in Islam, the law protects the offenders instead of the citizens. He wishes to practice the same, feeding off and using people, destroying their creations, interrupting their flow, seizing their bounty, shattering their emotional stability, their innocence and their lives, all in order not to face his own state of worthless panic. Only a coward needs to approach life through an intermediary. He is not alone in this. Most doctrines hold slavery as their ultimate moral commitment to man. Christianity, for instance, holds that the pinnacle of moral action is self-slaughter, that true peace and harmony can only be achieved by accepting that one's life is the property of others, not forced, but through voluntary agreement. Riding the mind, their satisfaction is to force others to exercise the mental faculties which they refuse, coercing their victims to take action in contradiction to the proper intellectual function and well-being of a human entity. Their communal commitment to the less fortunate becomes a gun aimed at the able, saying, "Do what we tell you, or die." It is almost impossible to contemplate our own deaths, but spirit murderers have no problem contemplating how to sacrifice others. They generously spill our blood in benevolence toward their fellow neurotics. Considering sacrifice a moral concept serves to shield the abrogation of rights, permitting them to say, "If you won't give us what we want, we will force you to be moral." And their contrived retribution sparks a scramble for what has been created, never how. Physical slavery carries with it a much deeper cognitive torture, the placing of one's fundamental purpose into the hands of another. It limits the better men to the cognitive levels of the oppressors, or considerably lower, trapped in the mindless repetition of their demands. They hit the nail on the head for the worst possible human violation, control of a biological entity, by a source outside the entity. This is not their primary, however. Their primary is to hijack the mind and body of another, and instill it with the defaulted task of keeping them alive, done mostly by percentages in today's world. Slavery is strictly a concept of human relation, considering human beings to be a product like trees or cattle, to be chopped, slaughtered, or like batteries, used up and disposed of. Throughout its forms, it is defined as any human system set to benefit specific men at the expense of others, be it energy taken or fields of action forbidden. Modern methods of slavery are less crude and much more subversive. The killers put us in compromising moral dilemmas to force unhappiness, to take control of our actions, and to redistribute the product of our effort. They do whatever is necessary to transfer the living energy of the individual to whatever power is dominant, a state, a group, a creed, or just another individual. Ignoring their well-voiced contempt against materialism, notice they attack those with the most assets to take, the American middle and upper classes. In essence, they think, if we just pass laws that give us the right to the property or persons of others, then we can live much easier, and the law will protect our position over them instead of protecting them from us. With the organized power of the state behind them, no one can defy their neurosis. Through this structure, which morphs as chartered monopolies, subsidies, welfare, predatory taxes, and interest, they can feed off people they never have to see. Sacrifice is the modern word for slavery, and it requires a submission-domination system. To give one's life away is to be a slave, no matter the benefactor. By this premise, a man must consider as his moral primary, not how his life will be lived, but how it will be destroyed. He is asked to consider the suffering of the world, not its health. There is no need to address or study the healthy as they don't need assistance, which eliminates drawing any roads to recovery or the subsequent discharge of the healer or the slave. Self-made man can answer disasters much better as he is focused on the preservation of calm, but that is not what the welfare preachers want. Watch closely. They do not regard your actions as a virtue if there is no sacrifice involved. You gain no approval if you are not harmed. The reason? Sacrifice requires parasitism. Tying us together, it justifies their position and forces us to miserably impose ourselves on others, as they do. As fear drives them to act, it is fear they intend to elicit in others. As psychology is where their cognitive limit is, It is primitive psychology they attempt to use against men. In facing their ethical questions, it is always the sacrifice of life to prove your worth scenario. At any time, he has a fistful of false assertions to offer, all resting on the hope that they won't be questioned, as their means of derivation likewise must go unquestioned. Present morality is riddled with false assertions and false opposites, whose purpose is to attach negativity to positive elements to mask their value, stealing their moral impact, and disrupting their pursuit. If his assertion fails, his reciprocal is an equally damning submission-domination alternate, all he is willing to acknowledge, so that he can get what he wants either way. His only alternative to Christianity is immorality. A Christian must atone for the sin of his existence, and likewise, immorality demands atonement. His only alternative to self-sacrifice is hedonism. His only alternative to charity is personal misery. Sacrifice rewards flaws, even though nature refuses to. Rewards are taken from those who did not err. These false paths form epistemological structure that leads to stagnation, looping, and the demanded renunciation of consciousness, the destruction of self in favor of any other source. All lead back to slavery. Sacrifice rewards flaws, even though nature refuses to. Rewards are taken from those who did not err, the only ones who have what they're after, and who practice the true alternative of their every premise. Any forced contribution is slavery. The pursuit of a moral life, which is the pursuit of happiness, has nothing to do with others. The pursuit of happiness is not an endeavor of slaves. Through productiveness and personal fulfillment, the action of pursuing your passion through work is your social contribution. Simply not being a burden on them fully discharges your duty to others. Sacrifice is easy for spirit murderers to propound. They have nothing to sacrifice. Self-sacrifice is an indication, not of Mother Teresa goodness, but of incompetence. To give a part of yourself away is to admit the inability to exercise the proper function of that part, the inability to make it pay for itself. You are a physiological whole. There is no way to part yourself out and survive too. The call for sacrifice is the surest sign that a leader needs to step down. That's all for now. Next up is torture. I split these videos up by subject so you'd have a better chance of finding moral armor, and then perhaps go through the whole thing for free. Why? To help create a leader in every life. Sound civilization stair-steps up from sound coherence to sound individual to productive groups of mature individuals. Self-hatred drives fear-driven people in our world to wipe out the individual, so we all need moral armor to protect ourselves and the future of mankind. Click subscribe and leave a thumbs up if you'd like to help wipe out moral confusion fast and make the world a better place.